Good evening, everyone. It's Sunday evening, March 26, 2023. And I have a few things that I want to get off my chest regarding U.S. policy and its failures. Let's start with the war in Ukraine. Um, no, scratch that. I'm going to come back to that. Let's start with U.S. foreign policy regarding our relationship with China, Russia, the Ukraine, Iran, all the other parties involved, China as well. So we are embarked on a war with the Ukraine, with Russia, I'm sorry, for Ukraine. And this whole thing kind of came about because Putin and the United States had agreed in the past that NATO would not move eastward to encroach more on the Soviet or Russian border. And they would not basically take on more members into NATO to actually move eastward onto Russia's borders in such a way they would basically encroach or just encircle Russia and surround them from a military strategic point. So that treaty agreement was broken. The United States is trying to prevent Russia from taking Ukraine back. And the reason why Putin is taking Ukraine back is because it's a response because NATO didn't hold up to their end of the bargain with regard to not taking on more territories that would actually increase NATO's um, territory or amount of area that's going to be added to NATO to encroach upon Russia's, land, if you will. And so, and on top of that, the United States, or Joe Biden, I should say, and his son have done many backdoor dealings with Ukraine and China, especially when Joe Biden was vice president with Barack Obama, and this whole thing, as far as United States and the Biden connection, and uh, Joe Biden's son, and all his debauchery, while his dad was vice president, can be cooperated in this book entitled "Laptop from Hell" by Miranda Devine, which I've started reading. I haven't finished it, but it has plenty of good information in it regarding, and it basically tells why Joe Biden is so hell bent on helping Ukraine to defeat Russia and remain independent, and so they can actually join NATO, and the United States can gain a strategic advantage against Russia, and that's one of the primary reasons why. And then we talk about China. China, United States is trying to prevent China from eventually going to war against Taiwan to basically make Taiwan part of China. And the United States is helping Taiwan and trying to build up their military armaments to fight off China. I don't think that's going to work because the United States is currently embroiled in a war with Russia over Ukraine. And lately, we have, I think it was Syria has been flying drones and bombing United States military installations in Syria, killing U.S. contractors, things of that nature. So we have a impending war potentially against Syria. We're already engulfed in a war against Russia for Ukraine, and we're about to go to war with uh, China over Taiwan. And I listened to a video yesterday stating that United States had planned on invading Mexico for whatever reason. So I'm trying to figure out how you're going to fight 3.5, almost 4 wars at one time, and you already don't have the numbers to go against all those countries, more specifically China and Russia, at the same time. I mean, you have Syria you're trying to deal with now. You're threatening Mexico, and you're already in a war with Russia over Ukraine, and now a war is on the horizon, definitely with China for the independence of Taiwan. That's a lot. That is a lot. I believe Hitler was defeated because he tried to fight a war on 2 fronts. And here it is, the United States, we're trying to fight a war potentially on 4 fronts, no less than 3. That doesn't make any kind of sense. We can't win that war at all. We don't have the military armaments to um, factories to crank out, military supplies, military armaments, tanks, ammunition, like they did back in World War II, where the men had to go off the war and the wives had to stay home and work in the military factories to crank out the shells and the bombs and the tanks and things like that. We don't have that going on today at all. So, and China does. They have like military factories they can crank out, and I'm pretty sure Russia does too. Military factories they can crank out, whatever they need from a military standpoint, ammunition, weapons, tanks, all of that. And China has that too. And we, United States, we don't have that. And as a matter of fact, uh, our ally, as far as I know, is maybe Britain, Japan, Australia, maybe France, maybe Germany. And now let's jump over to the BRICS. So we've been living with this fiat currency. It was pegged to gold prior to 1971 with the Bretton Woods agreements. And the Bretton Woods agreements, in short, was an agreement with Saudi Arabia that, hey, we will protect you militarily, your borders and things like that against all enemies, as long as you pretty much force or pressure other oil producing countries to purchase oil from you in United States currency, dollars. Now, with the creation of BRICS, that's been totally obliterated, and the United States dollar, the petrodollar, is its days are numbered. I mean, it could be next week because China, well, let me start BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa have joined the BRICS. They're coming together to create a new currency where they can actually, basically trade and barter or pay for oil and other currencies outside of the US dollar. And this currency is definitely going to be backed by gold, which the United States dollars used to be backed by gold prior to 1971, August 1971, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. I believe it was like $20 for 1 ounce of gold. They outlawed, they took the dollar off the gold standard because they knew that they didn't have the gold to pay depositors money in gold. If they should come back and do a run on the banks and say, hey, we're going to turn back in these gold certificates. We want real gold, real tangible gold. They didn't have it. So in 1971, August, Nixon separated the dollar from gold. And ever since then, it's been like a money printing factory from the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department, more specifically the Federal Reserve. Ever since this COVID pandemic has hit the United States and the world, the United States has been constantly, it's a lot I can go into, but just in a constant money printing frenzy, quantitative easing to kind of help people who are out there, out of jobs because of COVID, businesses were closed and things like that. United States Federal Reserve, they're printing up money to help back banks in their other debaucherous business dealings with people's depositors' money. We have the Silicon Valley Bank failure, like 2 or 3 other ones and things like that, And so, this United States fiat currency dollar is it's on its last legs. And I just got a question. So what are U.S. citizens going to do when the currency ultimately fails and the federal government says, what are we going to do? We're going to roll in this Fed Now coin or central bank digital currency, and we're going to give you a penny for every $1,000 you have in a bank. What's going to happen when that happens? Because that's not if, it's when. People are going to be taken off guard. It's going to be total pandemonium chaos. It's going to be chaos in the streets. People are going to be up in arms, and it's hey, this country, it's just a wrap over here because we don't have the military to fight all these wars at one time. Our currency is going down the toilet because of BRICS. And you have also Mexico joining BRICS. You have other countries joining BRICS. And so everybody's leaving the dollar. Japan, China, they're turning all their U.S. debt and currency in the form of bonds. They're getting rid of it because they see the writing on the wall, the dollar is done. And so that's why all these countries have been buying gold, like China and Russia and other countries like India. They've been, hoarding gold, because they know something is coming. They have a plan to, again, have some type of currency that's going to take the place of the dollar and it's going to be backed by gold. And, that's going to spell the end for the petrodollar. And as a matter of fact, that's why Muammar Gaddafi was killed, because he wanted African countries to come together to develop a bank for Africa, where that they will force other countries to pay for their oil in gold, not fiat currency, but gold. And that's the main reason why the federal government and CIA went over there and asked Gaddafi. I'm pretty sure of it. But what else do I have to speak of on this issue? Then we have the COVID outbreak and things of that nature, and the COVID 19 pandemic. And if I was you, I would get this book. I mean, I've read the introduction up to page like 15 or so. I would get this book. It's called The Real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the Global War on Democracy and Public Health by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It has some really explosive information in there, how Dr. Fauci and his cronies have intentionally dropped the ball and sacrificed millions of American lives, where other countries like Italy, Britain, France, China implemented several protocols and used different drugs to fight off and effectively, severely reduce the number of casualties caused by COVID in those countries. More specifically, hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, in addition to other supplements in the book and everything. Like I said, I would actually get this book. It's very good. I haven't even got to page 15 yet. I've read the introduction, and it's excellent information. In addition to the laptop from hell, it explains about the Bidens and all their backdoor dealings with Ukraine and China. A lot of things which you've seen in the news last year, dealing with Biden's son. I forgot his name. Him doing whatever he can. Anything. There's no law that they abided by. They were above the law. I mean, they did, again, backdoor dealings with China, Ukraine, and things like that. And on top of that, when you think about the United States going to war against China, you think about it. China owns a lot of land in this country. China produces and manufactures 95% of the pharmaceuticals, the medicines that people need to survive, elderly people and all others to survive daily in this country. So when you go to war against China, and we're talking about militarily initially for Taiwan, you already have Chinese cyber attacks that are successful to a great degree against a variety of different resources here in the United States, banks, whatever, businesses and things like that. And then you have a military that is really formidable with regard to going against the United States. And then what's going to happen when China cuts off exporting medical supplies, pills, pharmaceuticals to the United States? How many of our citizens are going to pass away or die because they need that medication to survive? So the United States should have been playing a chess game instead of a checkers game with regard to dealing with other countries, that we were competing against, China, Russia, and all the other ones that were, basically allies that come together to fight against, United States now. We've always been enemies of Iran and, things like that was happening in the past between the United States and Iran and other countries, North Korea. And so all these Asian countries are saying, what, if we put together our differences within, between ourselves, and we come together to fight a common foe, which is, quote unquote, the United States, we can actually, turn that country from a first world country to a third world country. We can kill their dollar, we can really make trading with them, their survival actually much more difficult, because if we cut off medication, me speaking of China and other things and other trade with the United States, where are we going to go? Because the United States, we sent off all our businesses and all our factories. We shipped them out of the country over to foreign lands and things like that, just so CEOs can get, a higher bottom line. They can have more money to go out and spend on whatever. And they sold out the American public. People don't have jobs here. We have unemployment. We have train derailments. Biden was over in Ukraine while, Trump was here in Ohio trying to console and show that he's actually for the American people with regard to this East Palestine train derailment. And Biden's over, overseas trying to court, Ukraine, in addition to giving them billions of dollars that we can use over here to do things that kind of help our economy, infrastructure, borders and things like that. So it's United States, we are done unless for whatever, a miracle happens. We have another president can come in here, begin to turn things around and bring more factories and manufacturing back to the United States. We won't have such a large trade deficit because we don't really export anything. We import everything. That's where we have that trade deficit. That's why we're so much debt. We have what, close to 32 trillion dollars worth of debt that we owe to other countries. Unfunded pensions, liabilities, Medicare, Social Security. We got the military we're supporting. Military budget and things like that. Healthcare. It's a lot, and then we can't afford to just send all our factories out of the country, have all our citizens, unemployed because of the greedy CEOs and other members and politicians who stand to gain a buck because they don't want to actually pay American citizens to a decent and fair wage to survive and thrive. So it's not looking good, and I can see why some people are expatriating to different countries because this country has really dropped the ball, over the last 30 or so years, ever since like the Reagan era, the crack epidemic, it's been going all downhill. I would go back to say even in Jimmy Carter's administration. So that's all I have to report right now. If I were you guys, I would definitely stay on YouTube and pay attention to current events regarding banking, the dollar, foreign policy regarding this war. With Russia and potential war on the horizon with China, how we're trying to deal with the Syria situation, and we're trying to invade Mexico, which makes absolutely no sense because Mexico is one of our trading partners. So I don't know whose idea this was what the kind of game plan United States policy game plan are using to kind of turn this thing around, but it's going to be interesting. So stay sharp and stay abreast of current news on YouTube. I wouldn't pay attention to local CNN, local news because they have their own spin on it, and they don't tell the truth at all. So I would use other means of trying to get current, up to date, accurate information. Signing off.